Shwmae, bore da, croeso I gynhadledd genedlaethol gwaith Ieuenctid 2021. Hello, good morning. Welcome to the National Youth Work Conference 2021. My name is Chris Jones, and I'm your host for today's proceedings. Now, we have a very busy programme of activity today with keynote speeches, a series of workshops, all running until just after 3 o'clock this afternoon. Hope you'll stay with us all day. Presentations today will be delivered in both Welsh and English. I mynd I drial wneud heddiw mor ddwyieithog a phosib, wrth gwrs, and live Welsh to English translation is available. More of that a little later. Felly, rhwydweithio yn syml iawn yw pwrpas heddiw. Today is all about interacting with each other, exchanging views, hopefully networking. So let me take you through how that happens for those of you who might be, well, a little bit new to Hopin, our stage. Wherever you are in Hopin, you'll see a panel on the right-hand side which gives you access to chat, polls, and people. Now, chat is self-explanatory. Please use it. This is where you can ask any questions, make any observations, of course, in either Welsh or English about the presentation you are listening to. So please do contribute. Newch y gorau I gyfrannu yn y Gymraeg, wrth gwrs, neu y Saesneg, neu mor ddwyieithog a phosib. Polls is a quick and fun option, which you may find some of the presenters using. It's a great way of getting quick feedback from you on the issue under discussion. We'll have a go in a minute so you can see how it works. In the people area, you'll see names of everyone who's attending today. Click on any name and you'll be presented with a series of options for contacting them for a chat or a video call even. So feel free to do so as part of your networking. And of course, you can share your thoughts about today on social media using the hashtag, that's hashtag YouthWorkWales, neu yn y Gymraeg, wrth gwrs, ac i ni yn wir gobeithio gewch chi gyfrannu yn ddwyieithog gymaint â phosib, yr hashnod yw gwaith Ieuenctid Cymru, felly gwaith Ieuenctid Cymru. Okay, so themed time to deliver. The conference today aims to provide you as youth work practitioners with an opportunity to engage with others across the sector on the future of youth work in Wales, as well as providing opportunities for debate, networking with peers, as I've just said, and professional learning. Now, since the last conference, well, we have lived through a very difficult time, to say the least. So much across the world has changed, as well as in the world of youth work. We hope that our workshop sessions, I say that again, workshop sessions, that's a hard one, which have been put together and planned by practitioners from across the sector, will give you the chance to talk to others who are facing the same issues. So we very much hope you enjoy and benefit from the day. Gobeithio gewch chi rhywbeth allan o heddiw, wrth gwrs. But before we dive in, well, I have a few housekeeping rules for you, which will help you find your way around the event platform, hopefully, and ensure you can access everything throughout the day. Now, you can move around the event very easily by clicking on the icons on the left-hand side of your screen. Ar yr ochr chwith, you should be able to see 4 icons. Mae 'na 4 icon. Stage, where we are now, of course, reception, sessions, and networking. Click on the reception icon to see the detailed timetable for today. The stage icon is where the keynote speakers will speak and where the wrap-up session at the end of the day will take place. The sessions icon gives you access to the workshops, which will be taking place later this morning and then after lunch. By clicking on a session icon, you'll be able to join the workshop that's running at this time. Now, the morning workshops last for an hour, and this afternoon, you'll be able to join 2 35-minute workshops of your choice. First at 1:50, 10 to 2, and then at 2:40, 20 to 3. But don't worry, I'll give you further instructions as we go throughout the day. Felly mae'r gweithdai bore yma o gwmpas rhyw awr a wedyn prynhawn yma o gwmpas rhyw hanner awr. Now, this sessions area is also where you'll find the help desk, and this is really important. So if you have any questions during the day about using the Hopin platform, of course, which might be new to some of you, drop in there for a live video chat with one of our technicians. They are waiting for your call anytime. If you want to move around during any of the live sessions, for example, to look at the program in the reception area while you're in a workshop, maybe right-click. Now, this is important. Right-click on any of the icons and open them in a new window. The last icon then is the networking icon. You can network on Hopin in a way which mimics the kind of spontaneous meetings you would have at an in-person event during refreshment and maybe lunch breaks. Click on the icon, click join. You'll be matched automatically and randomly with another person seeking to network in a one-to-one video meeting for up to 3 minutes. Felly mae'n gyfle I gael cyfarfod o ryw fath neu gilydd o gwmpas ryw 2 munud. If you know the name of somebody you want to network with, you can also create a one-to-one meeting with them. Go to the People tab of the event, find the person you'd like to connect with, and click the Send a Message or Invite a Video Call option. I think I'll be doing a lot of that today. Let's do that again. Go to the People tab of the event, find the person you'd like to connect with, and then click the Send a Message or Invite a Video Call option. This facility will be available during every break, of course, and again at the end of the day. Felly, eto, unrhyw broblem, unrhyw gwestiwn, defnyddiwch y botwm chat unrhyw bryd. A mae yna bobl arbenigwyr allan fanna yn barod I ateb eich cwestiynau chi. Okay, so let's have a bit of fun to start with and have a go at using the platform maybe. We've set up some polls which we'll look at over the early part of this morning. So look over to the right-hand side of your screen, locate the polls button under the Stage tab. So that's the polls button under the Stage tab. You'll see a couple of poll questions there. One asking, how are you feeling today? The other is about social media. Mae yna un pleidlais yn gofyn sydd ddyrnod ych chi'n gael heddiw hyd yn hyn, ac un arall yn holi am y cyfryngau cymdeithasol. So why don't you give us your answers? We'll let you know the results a little later. So poll 1 is, how are you feeling today? Not so good, okay, or great. Or poll 2 then, when working with young people, which social media channel have you found most useful in engaging with them? There's quite a few, of course, but the 3 we've got are Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. So let's have your answers when you are ready. Okay, well, my thought is, you've covered a lot in the first minutes. There's a lot to remember, of course. So before the key events in the agenda, we will be returning to studio here so that I can remind you maybe of what you need to do next. Right, well, then we ddechrau'r dynod gyda'n cyflwyniad cynta ni os gewn ni. Let's start the day with our first presentation here on the stage, if we may. It comes from Mairead Edwards, who was until recently a student at Aberystwyth University and is now in post there as Welsh Culture Officer and UMCA President. Nawr, yn gystal â fod yn fyfyrwraig yn Aberystwyth tan yn ddiweddar, Mairead yw arlywydd Urdd Gobaith Cymru. Cymru Cymraeg yn amlwg yn ymwybodol o'r Urdd. Mairead is also the current president of Urdd Gobaith Cymru, Wales' largest youth organisation, of course. Now, she has recorded some thoughts to share with us today about her youth work journey. Fydd Mairead, wrth gwrs, yn siarad yn y Gymraeg. Mairead will be speaking in Welsh. Some simultaneous translation of Welsh to English is available if you need it. Now, to access this, again, right-click on the Sessions tab to open it in a new window. Locate the Stage translation box for the plenary session and enter it to hear the English translation of any Welsh being spoken. You can turn down the volume of the presentation on the main stage to maybe better hear the English translation just by using the audio control icon on the stage screen. Again, any questions, any comments about what Mairead says, please post them in the chat. We will arrange, of course, for responses to be circulated after the event. Felly, na cyfranthau I am y tro. Nawr, yn cyflwyniad cynta ni, our first presentation for today, please, is from Mairead Edwards.
Bore da, diolch yn fawr iawn am y cyfle I siarad yn y gynhadledd yma heddiw a diolch yn fawr I pawb sydd wedi weithio mor galed I drefnu. Mae'n braf iawn cael bod yma yn rhithiol heddiw I gael siarad chydig am fy mhrofiadau I o fewn gwaith Ieuenctid a sut nes I gael fewn iddo. Fy enw I di Mairead Edwards, dwi'n wreiddiol o Ynys Môn ond bellach yn byw yn Aberystwyth ar ôl graddio mewn gradd mewn Cymraeg, drama ac astudiaethau theatr. Dwi bellach yn gweithio fel Swyddog Diwylliant Cymreig a Llwydd undeb myfyrwyr Cymraeg Prifysgol Aberystwyth ar ôl cael fy ethol i'r swydd gan fyfyrwyr y Prifysgol. Fy nghyfrifoldebau gyda'r swydd hon ydy cynrychioli llais y myfyrwyr gan sicrhau bod modiwlau a gwasanaethau o fewn y Brifysgol yn darparu popeth yn ddwyieithog. Elfen arall o fy ngwaith yw trefnu digwyddiadau a gweithgareddau sy'n hyrwyddo diwylliant Cymreig megis Dydd Gwl Dewi neu Santes Dwynwen. Cyn cychwyn yn y Prifysgol, roeddwn yn gyfarwydd iawn ar undeb ac yn gwybod y byddwn ni dod yn rhan ohono unwaith roeddwn ni fyfyrwraig yma. Pan nes i ddeall fod yna swydd llywydd yn cael ei gynnig bob blwyddyn, fe ddewedais i yn y flwyddyn gyntaf y byddwn ni'n mynd amdani ar ôl i mi raddio, a felly mae'n fraint mod i'n cael y cyfle i wireddu'r freuddwyd honno eleni. Tydw i ddim wastad wedi bod yn berson mor hyderus. Mae hynna'n rhywbeth sydd wedi datblygu i mi dros amser. Yn fy arddegau cynnar, mi oeddwn i'n unigolyn ddigon distaw cyn i mi ddechrau gwirfoddoli gyda Urdd Gobaith Cymru. Felly, hoffwn i amlinellu fy llwybr i yn ymwneud â gwasanaethau Llwyfan. Dwi wedi bod yn aelod o'r Urdd ers i mi fod yn ddim o beth, ond wedi bod yn fwy rhagweithiol ers i mi gychwyn gyda'r fforwm Llwyfan yn Ynys Môn nôl yn 2015. Ar ôl blwyddyn o fod ar y fforwm, cefais fy ethol fel is-gadeirydd ac ymlaen o hynny i fod yn gadeirydd. Trwy hyn, cefais i'r cyfle i fod yn gyfrifol am drefnu agenda a chynnal cyfarfodydd gyda'r fforwm. Yn ymestyn o'r fforwm daeth llwyth o gyfleoedd. Byddes i'n lys-genad i Urdd Ynys Môn yn fy ysgol, ble bydd rhaid hyrwyddo unrhyw deithiau neu weithgareddau mewn gwasanaethau neu argyfryngau cymdeithasol. Yn fuan iawn, fyddes i'n berson llawer iawn mwy hyderus oedd wedi hen arfer a siarad yn gyhoeddus o flaen cynulleidfa a chydweithio gyda eraill. Sgiliau sydd wedi bod yn allweddol i gael mi i ble ydw i heddiw. Datblygais i berthynas wych gyda staff yr Urdd a trwy gadw mewn cyswllt rheolaidd a chael mewnbwn i benderfyniadau gwahanol a cyfarfodydd rhanbarthol, roedd yn gwneud fy swydd fel cadeirydd yn llawer iawn haws oherwydd roedd gen i ddealltwriaeth glir o'r prosesau gwahanol oedd yn cymryd lle. Gwn ein bod ni wedi bod yn ffodus iawn gyda staff y Môn ac yn dilyn ailstrwythuro'r Urdd a gweld llwyth o swyddi newydd yn cael eu cynnig ar draws y wlad, can weithio tuag at gael perthnasau yr un mor sefydlog rhwng staff a fforymau ar draws pob rhanbarth. Mae teithiau sy'n cael eu cynnal gan yr Urdd wastad wedi bod yn boblogaidd ymysg aelodau, a thrwy fod yn rhan o'r fforwm dwi wedi cael y cyfle i deithio hyd a lled Prydain a thramor i Sbaen, yr Eidal, Ffrainc a Patagonia. Ar lefel mwy cenedlaethol, dwi wedi bod yn rhan o fwrdd sy'r ifanc, sef bwrdd Ieuenctid yr Urdd. Eto, cefais ar anrhydedd o fod yn is-gadeirydd i'r bwrdd am 2 flynedd a thrwy hynny'n is-Llywydd i'r Urdd. Cyn cychwyn fy rôl fel cadeirydd y bwrdd a Llywydd yr Urdd am y 2 blynedd nesaf nôl ym mis Ionawr eleni. Yn amlwg, nid yw'r flwyddyn diwethaf wedi bod yn hawdd yn sgil Covid-19, ond dwi'n hynod falch o'r ffordd mae'r Urdd wedi gweithio drwy'r pandemig ac ei oroesi yn gryfach ar yr ochr arall gan gyflwyno 60 o swyddi a prentisiaethau newydd i bobl ifanc Cymru. Camp arbennig ar ôl blwyddyn mor heriol. Rhan o fy rôl yw mynychu byrddau canolog yr Urdd a chyfarfodydd yr ymddiriedolwyr, ble mae penderfynadau'n cael ei gwneud am ddyfodol y mudiad. Trwy fynychu'r rhain dwi wedi cael deall gymaint o waith trefnu a pharatoi sydd tu ôl i lwyddiant y mudiad a sylweddoli pa mor hanfodol ydy barn pobl ifanc. Dyma sy'n cadw'r Urdd yn fudiad cyfoes yn darparu profiadau allgyrsiol sydd oll bwysig i ddatblygiad a lles plant a phobl ifanc. Pwysig i mi oedd derbyn a chyfrannu yn y Gymraeg. Felly, fel rhywun ac rhyw ffrindiau eitha Saesnigaidd yn yr ysgol, roedd yn braf cael rhywle i fynd i gael cymdeithasu gyda criw Cymraeg oedd â diddordebau tebyg, a derbyn pob gwasanaeth a gweithgaredd drwy'r Gymraeg. Cafodd hyn ddylanwad mawr ar fy mhynciau dewisol yn y chweched dosbarth a hefyd yn y Brifysgol. Dwi wastad wedi bod yn hoff o ganu ac actio, ond erioed wedi mentro ddim byd mwy na sioeau ysgol oherwydd diffyg hyder. Ond, nôl yn 2015, es i am glyweliad i fod yn rhan o gynhyrchiad yr Urdd o Le Miserable fersiwn ysgolion. Cafodd ei berfformio yng nghanolfan y Millennium yng Nghaerdydd. Ac o brofi'r gynulleidfa ar awyrgylch o fod yn rhan o rhywbeth mor arbennig, roeddwn i'n gwybod mod i am ddilyn gyrfa mewn theatr o rhyw fath, a mae hynny'n dal i sefyll heddiw oherwydd i gobeithio cael swydd o fewn theatr ar cyfryngau ar ôl cwblhau fy mlwyddyn fel llywydd UMCA yn Aberystwyth. Mae gwirfoddoli gyda'r Urdd wedi agor llwyth o ddrysa i mi yn bersonol. Cefai swydd rhan amser fel Swyddog Ieuenctid yng Ngheredigion yn ystod fy ail flwyddyn yn y Brifysgol ac eisiau cyfle i redeg y fforwm Ieuenctid yno a threfnu cyrsiau cymorth cyntaf, helendid bwyd a diogelwch plant, dim ond i enwi ychydig i'r aelodau, a trefnu gwahanol ddigwyddiadau megis gigs neu gweithgareddau awyr agored i aelodau'r rhanbarth. O ganlyniad i'r holl siarad cyhoeddus yn dod ynghlwm a bod yn llywydd yr Urdd, ro'n i'n teimlo ddigon hyderus i roi fy enw ymlaen ar gyfer y swydd dwi ynddi heddiw. Roedd rhaid ymgyrchu ac ymysgu gyda myfyrwyr y Brifysgol a gwthio fy hun allan o fy man cyfforddus mwyn ennill bleidleisiau pobl oedd erioed wedi cwrdd â mi o'r blaen, a'i perswadio i ymddiried yno fi i'w cynrychioli. Mae yna bwysigrwydd i bawb ddeall cyfraniad gwasanaethau gwaith Ieuenctid i fywydau tymor byr a thymor hir. Dwi'n profi'r cyfraniad tymor byr, ac wrth i'r Urdd agosau at ddathu'r camlynedd, mae'n braf clywed pobl hyn o'i 20 i'r 80au yn cofio nôl gyda balchder am gyfraniad mudiadau ieuenctid ar ddarpariaeth fel yr Urdd, ffermwyr ifanc ac yn y blaen. Oherwydd profiadau preswyl fel taith Patagonia ac cynhyrchiad theatr yr Urdd o Lemys, des i'n abod cyfeillion ledled Cymru sydd dal yn ffrindiau ac yn rhan mor bwysig o mywyd ei hyd heddiw. Mae'r Urdd wedi wneud i'n berson mor gymdeithasol a dwi wrth y modd yn cael y cyfle i ddod i adnabod pobl newydd a clywed eu hanes nhw o ran eu cyswllt gyda'r Urdd a sut mae'r mudiad wedi dylanwadu nhw. Trwy'r Urdd dwi wedi ennill sgiliau newydd, cyfleoedd newydd, ymestyn gorwelion a trial rhywbeth newydd. Dwi wedi cael cysondeb mewn bywyd oherwydd y pobl anhygoel dwi'n cael gweithio efo nhw a mae gen i wastad rhywun i droi atyn nhw. Mae gwaith ieuenctid wedi cyfrannu'n fawr at gadernid fy iechyd meddwl. Mae'n gyfle i gael allan o'r tŷ a gwneud rhywbeth newydd gwahanol bob amser. Dwi'n aml yn eistedd ac yn cofio nôl at yr atgofion da a chael hwyl. A mae gallu rhannu'r atgofion hynny gyda gymaint o bobl eraill wastad yn bleser ac yn dod â gwen i ngwynebu. Ond yn anffodus, dydy pawb ddim yn deall pa mor allweddol yw gwasanaethau ieuenctid, yn enwedig rhai yn y Gymraeg, a mae angen i rhywbeth ddigwydd mwyn gwella hyn. Fel person ifanc sydd gyda 2 ymddilodolwr ifanc arall wedi medru gweld tu ôl i'r llên a chyfrannu ar lefel llywodraethol a strategol hirdymor ym mhenderfynadau'r bwrdd, dwi wedi profi bod llais pobl ifanc yn hanfodol ac yn cael ei werthfawrogi ac mae'n holl bwysig i ni annog mwy o bobl ifanc i leisio eu barn a chyfrannu tuag at gwaith ieuenctid. Os am sicrhau dyfodol gorau i bobl ifanc a gwneud hyn drwy gael sector gwaith ieuenctid gryf. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Mare, digon i gnoi cil yn fyna, wrth gwrs, a mae'n mor braf clywed Cymraeg, mor greinus. Thank you, Mare. Some very interesting observations there, I'm sure you'll agree. Certainly, the chat area has been busy already. Now, we'll be taking all your comments, of course, from the chat throughout the day and passing them on to the Youth Engagement Branch for them to take on board. So, what about our poll results from earlier on? Beth am y bleidlais gynta? Well, it turns out that 3% of you are not so good. I hope you're okay. 35% are feeling great, but 62% are feeling okay. Felly, beth am y gweddill? Well, Twitter seems to be the most popular. I think, no, actually the least popular, 6%, and then Facebook, 40%, and then Instagram with 54%. And I'm a bit of an Instagram junkie myself. Okay, how about a couple more? We thought these two would be interesting. Now, we want to know whether you've been furloughed in the past year and whether you've read the recent report called Time to Deliver, and that's published by the Interim Youth Board for Wales. Felly, y ddwy bleidlais nesaf, diolch i chi eto am gyfrannu. Ydych chi wedi derbyn furlough, be bynnag yw nhw'n Gymraeg, yn ystod y flwyddyn diwethaf, a ydych chi hefyd wedi darllen yr adroddiad diweddara gan Fwrdd Ieuenctid Cymru. So please give us your answers over in the polls area under the stage tab. So eto, how many of you experienced furlough? Either answer yes or no. And how many of you read the recent report called Time to Deliver, published by the Interim Youth Board for Wales? Again, either yes or no. And again, we'll find out the results in a few minutes. But now we move on to hear from Jeremy Miles, MS, Minister for Education and the Welsh Language. Ein cyflwyniad nesa yw gan Gweinidog, Addysg a'r Iaith Gymraeg, ac yn anffodus, nid yw Jeremy Miles yn medru bod gyda ni, gan fod na ddigwyddiad go bwysig lawr yn y Senedd ym Mae Caerdydd heddiw. Unfortunately, the Minister is attending the official opening of the 6th Senedd today, so we can't be with us in person, of course. He has recorded a video, however, which we'll play shortly. As you know, the Minister was appointed in May and was pleased to have an early meeting with Keith Towler as the chair of the Interim Youth Work Board to discuss their work, and we'll hear from Keith later on. The Minister has confirmed, however, that youth work sits firmly within his portfolio, and he's keen to ensure that we all work together to ensure the best possible future for our young people. Felly, ymlaciwch, gwrandewch ar ei neges. Please listen to his message. If you do have any questions, any comments, please add them again in the chat area on the right-hand side of the screen. We'll gather them all in and send the replies, of course, to all delegates in due course. Fe na fy ngorau I gasglu unrhyw gwestiwn wrth gwrs yn eich Gymraeg neu yn Saesneg ar gyfer y Gweinidog. Now, some of the minister's delivery is in Welsh. Jeremy is a Welsh speaker, and English translation again will appear on the screen. If you wish to hear the simultaneous English translation, please go to the translation box for the plenary session. As before, right-clicking on the sessions icon to open it up in a new window. Felly, gadewch I ni glywed anerchiad y Gweinidog ac ein prif araith heddiw. Let's hear the minister's address on today's keynote speech. Please, thank you. Run the video from the Minister.
Helo bawb a chroeso i'r gynhadledd genedlaethol gwaith Llwyfan. Mae'n bleser cael y cyfle yma I siarad gyda chi ac I gyflwyno fy hunan fel Gweinidog y Gymraeg ac Addysg. I ddechrau, rwy am gydnabod yr hyn rych chi newydd glywed gan Mared a grym gwaith Llwyfan I drawsnewid bywyd person ifanc. Rydyn ni wedi gweld hyn yn digwydd dro ar ôl tro, a dyna pam rwy mor falch bod gwasanaethau gwaith Llwyfan yn rhan o fy mhortffolio I. Mae gweithwyr Llwyfan yn aelodau hanfodol o Deulu Addysg Cymru ac mae gan bob un ohonoch chi ran allweddol i'w chwarae I gyflawni ein nodau strategol ni. Rhan anatod o'r nodau yma yw'r angen I sicrhau tegwch I bawb a dileu anghydroddoldeb ar bob lefel o'n cymdeithas. Mae ein rhaglen lywodraethu yn dweud yn glir bydd Cymru yn wlad lle bydd neb yn cael ei dal yn ôl na'i gadael ar ôl. Fel gweithwyr Llwyfan, rydych chi mewn sefyllfa unigryw I allu cefnogi'r bobl ifanc sydd mewn mwyaf o beryg o gael ei gadael ar ôl. Felly rwy'n gofyn I chi heddiw ystyried eich rôl yn ei cefnogi a cheisio gwireddu hyn. Within government, we too are reflecting on this question and asking ourselves what more we might do. It was with this in mind that last month I announced an additional £2.5 million of funding for the youth work sector as part of our pandemic recovery plan. This funding will enable youth workers across the voluntary and statutory sectors to provide additional support for young people whose emotional, mental health and well-being needs are being left unmet. Getting your support as early as possible is essential in preventing and reducing longer-term adverse effects. With this new money, we are making almost £14 million available for youth work this year, nearly quadrupling the amount funded we provided on an annual basis some 3 years ago. This increased investment reflects the value and strategic importance that we place on youth work services here in Wales. Alongside this investment, I'm pleased also to confirm a new round of dedicated funding for voluntary youth work organisations in Wales. The Strategic Voluntary Youth Organisations Grant, which replaces the National Voluntary Youth Work Organisations Grant, will support national and smaller youth work organisations in delivering their vital work with young people. As part of this funding, we will be looking for organisations that can use their specialist knowledge and expertise to better reach out and support Black, Asian and minority ethnic, disabled and LGBTQ+ young people in Wales. Clearly, though, there is more work to be done. This is evident in the Interim Youth Work Board's recently published final report, Time to Deliver for Young People in Wales. Their recommendations are ambitious and they're challenging, and I'd like to take this opportunity to publicly thank them, the strategy participation groups, and the wider statutory and voluntary youth work sector for their work in delivering them. I want to give them the full and careful consideration they deserve. I'll therefore respond formally to the report at the end of this year, having first considered each recommendation in detail. This doesn't mean that momentum will be lost, and we will continue to collaborate closely with the sector as we look at next steps. In support of this, we will work towards the establishment of an implementation board next year that will drive forward our responses to the board's recommendations. Before that, though, I'm delighted to confirm that the Interim Youth Work Board have agreed to remain in post until that board is in place. I therefore remain indebted for their ongoing work and commitment, which has gone above and beyond what might have been expected of them when they first signed up for the role. Finally, I want to acknowledge the work of the Young Persons Committee, which has been such a rich source of support to the board. They are an exemplar model of youth participation in policy making that has been widely admired. Youth work in action. I gloi, rwy wedi ymrwymo'n llawn i gyflawni'r weledigaeth sydd wedi nodi yn y strategaeth gwaith Llwyfan. Rwy'n edrych ymlaen at gael parhau i gydweithio gyda chi i gyd wrth i ni geisio creu gwasanaeth gwaith Llwyfan y gallwn ni ymfalchio ynddo yng Nghymru. Diolch a mwynhewch gynhadledd.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Jeremy. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Well, I hope you found that informative. Thank you to the Minister for his time. I know he's a very, very busy man. As the Minister has indicated, there is still a lot of work to be done, of course, and consideration of the board's recommendations is still ongoing. If you do have any thoughts that you want to share, again, please add them in the chat. Ac eto, pidwch o bod yn swil, unrhyw gwestiwn, unrhyw ymateb, yna defnyddiwch y chat neu sgwrs yn Gymraeg. So far, we've heard from Marid about the huge impact youth work can have on the lives on young people, of course, bringing opportunities and experiences that they would not otherwise have. However, we know that youth work is not just about creating these opportunities and these experiences. Sometimes it's simply about access to a trusted adult, someone a young person can turn to if things are not going that well. Unfortunately, we know that services are not reaching all young people across Wales at the moment. There's lots of work that needs to be done, of course, to improve the equality, inclusion, and diversity of access to services. And there's not a quick solution to this, unfortunately. Now, we thought at this point it would be useful to get a feel for how many of you today are involved with one of the board's SPGs. Now, what are these, I hear you say? They are strategic participation groups. For those of you who don't know, I'm sure most of you do, neu yn y Gymraeg, grwpiau cyfranogaeth strategol. So, back to our polls. The results are in. We had two little questions earlier on. How many of you have experienced furlough? Be bynnag yw hwnnw yn Gymraeg? Well, it seems that most of our people today, 85% have experienced furlough. 15% said yes. Sorry, beg your pardon. 15% have experienced furlough. 85 have not experienced furlough. So let's get that right. 15 yes, 85 no. And how many of you are saying that you've read the recent report called Time to Deliver? The results are coming in as I speak. The Time to Deliver, of course, was published by the Interim Youth Board for Wales. And, well, apparently it's 50-50. Yeah, half of you have, half of you haven't. So that's great. Okay, well, amser am ddau gwestiwn bach arall. Let's ask two more questions in the poll area. So poll number 5. How many of you had involvement with one of the board's SPGs? How many of you have had involvement in one way or another with one of the board's SPGs? Faint ohonoch chi sydd wedi bod yn rhan o'r grwpiau yma ryw fodd neu gilydd? And then the next one, how many of you who have not been involved with the SPGs would like to be involved in the future? Faint ohonoch chi sydd ddim wedi bod yn ymwneud â nhw fysa'n hoffi wneud yn y dyfodol? Again, it's a simple yes or no. Okay, let's move on. Our next contribution will bring us yet another perspective. Now, the board have worked alongside the Young Persons Committee as part of the development of their recommendations and the final report. Supporting that committee were 3 organisations, Urdd, Gobaith Cymru, and we've heard from Marid, of course, Ethnic Minorities and Youth Support Team, or also known as EYST, and Llwyfan, all of whom have brought with them their own expertise and knowledge of supporting young people from diverse backgrounds. Felly nesa, fideo fer yn sôn am rai o'r materion penna a rhai o'r strategaethau sydd mewn bodolaeth yn barod. Next, we have a short clip from EYST highlighting some of the key issues they've identified and some of the strategies they have in place to deal with them. We have contributions from 3 youth workers, and forgive me if I get these names wrong. It's Jalal Goni, Shaheen Noor, Alom, and Lee Tirartira, who are giving us their personal reflections on the work and life of a youth worker in Wales today, providing us with a glimpse maybe of some of the challenges they face. Felly eto, o fel o'r blaen, cofiwch roi unrhyw gwestiynau, unrhyw sylwadau yn y chat ar ochr dde y sgrin. As before, Any questions, any comments, please add them in the chat area on the right-hand side of the screen. We'll gather them all in, of course, and send the replies in due course. Okay, so let's hear this next video.
We come into contact with young people from lots of different backgrounds, but ultimately we're finding out at grassroots that they're not engaging with other provision that's on offer to them. Often this can be across from their home, a stone's throw away, and where there may be barriers to accessing services or for instance, play provision for some young people, what we're finding is that there almost needs to be a bespoke approach to young people without an understanding or family or maybe social context to youth offers near them. I fully support the Interim Youth Work Board's approach for a universal youth work offer for any young person in Wales, no matter where they live or whatever their background is. So I think the sector as a whole has got a lot more to do to work towards including young people who maybe fall through the net or aren't aware of provision that's available and the benefits of that provision locally for them. Young people often find their way to us because of negative experiences in different sectors and in different settings. So I think EYST is really unique in their approach to working with young people from ethnic minority backgrounds, because we have a lot of diverse staff with lots of lived experiences who utilise their skills and knowledge to engage with cultural competency, many different young people from lots of different backgrounds, and that's proven to increase engagement with ethnic minority young people who feel like provision is for them and they feel like they belong. Often those that are most in need are those that are most disconnected. And so reaching out to those that are in desperate need is a challenge. And I think experiences of working with the youth justice sector and social services and mental health services is that there's no provision, specific extra provision for people from a Black, Asian, minority ethnic background, and therefore we lose a lot of people in need.
Definitely one of the main issues has been funding. Even when we work with the council and the youth council workers, they haven't got a building. Everybody's trying to access the same building to rent out, and that's very limited due to the lack of facilities in Newport. This is why we have children, on the streets. I believe with the right funding, especially with the right organizations like EYST, we can bring people in, and obviously then we can do the consultations and find out what's going wrong, what's going right. Organizations need to have an outward transparency to show the representation of ethnic minorities that are coming through the doors, work that's going on to include and assess and evaluate the experiences of ethnic minority young people with their own provision. I think that'd be a really positive step.
There are some amazing, great examples of good work going on, but a lot more needs to be done for us to truly call Wales an inclusive and cohesive place to live in. And what would I like to see improve? Seeing more representation in higher positions, but also when it comes to youth work, seeing more youth workers from a diverse background. And some talking about the Romani traveller community, having youth workers from that community, having youth workers from Bangladeshi, Pakistani, Afghanistani, Syrian, all these different nations and ethnicities that are settled here in Wales. We need to see people who can speak the language, who understand the culture in these roles.
In Newport, most recently we've seen a big influx of Czech Roman community coming into Newport, but yet they were quite difficult to probably get outreach work from, try to get engaged with them. And through our Summer of Fun project, we had a football mania on Friday, which by word of mouth kind of got to the community, and they come in they come to our session, and that kind of broke the ice. Now we know what the problems are. You know, we can help tackle those problems and make them feel a part of the community.
Young people who are new to Wales won't necessarily have established networks and contacts and friendship groups. So I think Wales is built on its community spirit, and I think that's a real strength of the nation, and I'd love to see that reaching youth work in the youth sector as well. And I'd also like to see an improvement on organisations' own sort of internal lens around their own cultural competency. So maybe youth organisations accessing training and support from stakeholder groups around that cultural competency, working with BME community groups or anti-racism training to kind of support their own practice and understanding.
Gret, diolch yn fawr iawn. Diolch I bawb wrth gwrs nath gymeryd rhan yn y ffilm fer yna, ddiddorol dros ben. Thank you everyone who contributed to that film. Very thought-provoking, very interesting, and important that we look to build on the important work undertaken, of course, by EYST and other youth work organisations in Wales to address the gaps in our youth work offer, as those young men were just talking about. Now, cyn I ni wneud bach o rwydweithio, fi'n neud eto rwydweithio, before we do a bit of networking, I can reveal the results of our last two polls are in. They've just come in. So I asked you, first of all, how many of you have had involvement with one of the board's SPGs? Mae ohonoch chi sy wedi bod yn rhan o'r grwpiau strategol yma. Well, surprisingly, maybe only 33% of you have said yes. 66% have said no. So maybe there's a lot of improvement there. Of course, only 33% have had any involvement with the SPGs. And the other question, how many of you who have not been involved with the SPG would like to be involved in the future? Mae ohonoch chi fysa diddordeb mewn gweithio gyda'r grwpiau yma? Well, thankfully, 70% of you said, yes, I would love to be involved. So that's great news. 30% of you said, no, I don't really want to be involved. So thank you so much for your contributions. Diolch yn fawr iawn I chi am gymeryd rhan yn y bleidlais yna. So it's now time for a little bit of networking, bach o rhwydweithio. Just like in a real event, the Hop-In platform allows you to make new contacts or catch up maybe with people you already know, and I'm sure a lot of you know each other. To expand your contacts and meet up with people you don't yet know, go to the networking icon on the left-hand side of your screen, click join. You will be matched automatically, as I said earlier on, and randomly with another person seeking to network in a one-to-one video meeting. Alternatively, if you know the name of someone you want to network with, you can also create a one-to-one meeting with them. Go to the People tab of the event on the right-hand side of your screen, find the person you'd like to connect with, and then click the Send a Message or Invite a Video Call option. So it's Send a Message or Invite a Video Call option. Na eich gweld chi nôl yma ar y llwyfan yn studio ni am 11, lle fydd yn siaradwr gwadd nesa ni yn arech ni yn fyw, yn fyw. I'll see you back here at the stage, well, 11 o'clock, it's now 22-ish for our next speaker, Mr. Keith Towler, who will be here live to give you an update on the work of the Interim Youth Work Board for Wales. Felly am y tro, hwyl fawr i chi, and I'll see you back here at 11 o'clock.